Hi, welcome everybody to another session of Navigating a Crisis, Conversations of Change. And this afternoon we have Sillekens with us. But before we dive into the questions, I would just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we are both on, and also anyone who might be viewing this, and just pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. And just before we started this, I was asking Michael the organisation that he came from, and I realised he doesn't come from one organisation. He comes from a meta consortia. But I'll let Michael explain what that is, and he can introduce himself, and then we'll ask a few questions.
Thanks, Naomi. So, Michael Sillekens, I'm the operations manager for a consortium called Stepping Up. So Stepping Up is a consortium of 3 separate agencies, which is Odyssey House Youth Projects and Task Force. But we operate around the Bay in a couple of different consortiums. So down in Barwon, we operate in a consortium with Barwon Child Youth BCYF.
Child Youth Family?
Yeah, there's family in there somewhere. And Windana, and in Frankston Mornington, we are in a consortium with Anglicare and Windana. So we're a consortium, consortium. So it's okay when you understand it, but it can get a bit messy when it's HR stuff.
Yeah, totally. It does sound confusing. Cool. Thanks so much, Michael. So part of what we've been doing with these conversations, obviously, is just asking people the same questions, just to get a sense of the different perspectives and different experiences that people are having across the sector in relation to responding to the COVID situation. And the first question was around, what are you currently doing for yourself, for your staff, the people that you serve, and just your organisation or organisations, the multiples that you're involved in, to manage this current situation really safely and humanely, and in a way that maintains a sense of dignity for people, because obviously there's not a lot of choice in what's happening right now. So it's how are you trying to keep people safe and in the best way possible?
So look, really good question, and I think it's been a journey, you know, and it changes. It's just a week at a time, really. You know, Initially, I used to say, "Come on, guys, it's business as usual," and I sort of got slapped by somebody from the Alfred. He said, "No, it's not business as usual." And I said, "Well, it's business as usual as in an unusual time, really. It's what we're trying to do." So, really early on, we tried to embed a structure for the team. So, you know, I was really keen when we did close the offices and go home. You know, we tried to set up with the guys just to say, look, everybody, we want you to log on at a certain time. We're going to have a regular meeting every day. We even wrote an agenda for the meeting. Between this hour and this hour is client work. We'll have a break here for midday meditations or whatever. We'll do you know, we're all going to jump into some online study. You know, so I really tried to structure it for all the staff. And I just really wanted people to get into a routine, you know, because it was interesting, and it went well the first couple of weeks, or the first week, I guess. You know, we still do that. You know, we still sort of work to that framework, but very quickly learnt that the external pressures of being at home were a big factor. So we sort of got to the point where, so we were pulling together, myself and the general manager, Shelley, were pulling together the leadership team weekly as well, just sort of working with them about, you know, some just troubleshooting all the time. And one of the things we decided was we had no blanket rules, which, you know, everything on its merits, you know, every scenario on its merits. So things like, you know, parents with young kids was certainly a factor. You know, having people that were full-time employees but could only sort of probably work at 0.5 capacity, and how we actually do that. So we sort of navigated our way through all of those things, and just treating each and every person hopefully as an individual, and just sort of acknowledging what was going on for them, I think was really important. early on, we tried to make it as easy as possible to work from home. So we played a lot with different online tools. So, but we let people basically look if they wanted to take the office chair home, whatever they needed to take home, they could. They had to promise they'd bring it back and not sell it on Gumtree.
Anyone got a coffee machine?
So we all those really simple things. Possibly one of the biggest struggles we had was just the bombardment of different information that was coming through and different rules, and so that was sort of something we did struggle with a bit. Organisationally, I think it was really important that we connected really well with our other agencies. So there were a number of different network meetings that were happening. So through the PHN and through you guys around in both areas joining that meeting. The PCC, we had a good meeting in Darwin, in Bayside, Frankston as well. So it was really important just to talk to our other key players as well, and just sort of get a sense of where they're up to. Luckily, I think that the virus didn't really hit us. So, I didn't lose staff because of illness, which was something that we were sort of a bit prepared for, because we started talking early on around, what if half our team get knocked out? How do we then lean on Barwon Consortium and Frankston Consortium about giving them extra work, or about calling in some favours? But look, that may still happen. I don't know, may not. So that was, I think the connection then became really important, that we just kept talking about what each other's capacity was. And certainly, just was very creative around things like referral pathways and old rules didn't exist anymore. So, and it was one of the benefits, although it's been very time consuming, but one of the benefits I think of being around the Bay was learning some of the good stuff that was happening in Frankston and taking it to Geelong and vice versa.
Yeah.
So the other thing we did was I really wanted to just encourage all the clinicians about being creative and just saying, nothing's off the table. The old rules don't exist. If you had program staff doing counselling and case management, we had, our overdose prevention clinician running a choices group. We were just anything and everything to try and keep people busy. And just be creative, because this was a whole new world. We didn't really, I think we ever did counselling at all, really. Maybe a very little bit, but just, it was just completely different. Just sort of encouraging them to come up with different ideas around how they did things. So a few of the guys found some online tools that they were using, and they shared them around, just different resources that we were using. Things like adapting the choices program to being an online thing, just little things like that. And look, probably the only rule we sort of had was Shelley and I saying, look, just do as we say until we tell you not to do what we're saying. But because it was just changing so quickly, and
that's right.
So it was like, especially in those early days, which seems like an age ago.
Forever ago.
Do this, but I might change my mind in an hour, so.
Come back then.
Until I tell you not to, just do as I tell you to do, sort of thing. That was all sort of the stuff. I mean, we really tried to respect all the clients' choices as well. If it wasn't for them, we still offered face-to-face stuff fairly late in the piece. But some people, they don't like you, zooming into their house, or they might have young kids themselves, or the telephone just isn't comfortable for them. So, some of our guys got much busier, socially isolated clients that had no one around. So, some clients were ringing in 3 or 4 times a week. One of my clinicians said he'd he'd taken phone calls over the Easter break just from
Mm.
you know, and I said, mate, you don't have to do that, but he was happy to do it, and it was really, he actually found it was a really nice thing to do. So really just trying to keep that, and knowing that these guys a lot of our guys were struggling and they were isolated, so
Yeah.
trying to be flexible about how we did it. Yeah, and just trying to look, I probably failed in a couple of occasions around good leadership myself, just because of my own, I don't know, my own sort of view of the world and how people should act. But really aware that just trying to avoid a bit of a Lord of the Flies scenario where, we all go mad and we take over the island,
Oh gosh, I'm just picturing it right now, all around the bay, Geelong. It's
we were talking a bit earlier, but I think for 90% of the guys, it was okay. But again, my own reality is different to everyone else's. So, I don't have the challenge of young kids at home, and I don't have, I'm lucky I've still got a job. So, I'm not in a family violence situation, and I'm not saying that anybody is, but my own reality was okay. I don't have to, I dedicated all my driving time to exercise and running. So, acknowledging that one day I drive 2 hours to get to Geelong. So I've been a hell of a lot, which is me, and I'm happy to do that, but made the transition home okay, So that was a learning curve for me around making sure that I always consider what's, just from the other side, what other people, what's happening for other people. So, yeah.
And that would be the sign of a strong leader, I would say, not a failed leader.
Yeah, look, there's, I don't know, there's, you can always be better, I think.
Yeah, there's always room for growth, for sure.
Yeah,
And what I love hearing, and from you now, and from other people that I've been speaking with, is this idea of really putting people's needs at the centre, and whether that's what our clients are needing, whether that's what our staff are needing, and this idea that there is another way, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? It doesn't have to be all working from the office. It doesn't have to be all working from home. Like, there's things that we've learned from this, which, there's value in both of those scenarios. So what do we keep? And what can we let go? But particularly around the client-centered stuff, we've struggled for a while, and I think a lot of sectors have, due to funding and due to a whole range of reasons, to really be human-centered and client-centered in what we do. But now we absolutely are, because it's, how do we adapt ourselves around what clients need? How do we respond in a way that is going to be helpful and meaningful? So, I think there's probably a lot we can take away from that as well.
Yeah. And look, it was really important for us as well, just to make sure, it was the problem solving. It was putting our heads together around different things. It's like, what if our young mums in Frankston can't get nappies delivered? What do we do about that? And I was like, I've never had to think through some of these things, and it was just each case on its merits. Each scenario, we just had to sit down and go, okay, what are we going to do here? What are some of the solutions here? So. Some of the transport, getting a client from jail in Geelong into the TC under Odyssey was, it was like, wow, this is it just, each time was just a different thing there.
So the flexibility, I guess, is not just in how we've done things, but our thinking has been flexible as well. We've had to reconsider or reimagine what is pretty familiar territory in a new way, which I think is a real skill. It's a real strength.
Yeah, no, it's good. And it was sort of that that early on, that just planting that seed to go to the teams and go, guys, be creative. Let's again, no blanket rules, and be creative, and let's just talk and stay connected. So that's probably our biggest challenge, was that connectedness. The team, they deal with some pretty heavy stuff at times as well, and there were a couple of scenarios where there was some family violence, and the clinicians, they and homelessness stuff that really hard to deal with, and being, knowing that you don't have the same outlets that you do if you go back to your office and get that sort of that immediate, outlet sort of stuff. So, but staying connected was really important. And a couple of my teams, the guys some of my team leaders say they have more contact with their clinicians now. They're ringing frequently and talking about stuff. So yeah, look, there's been some really good things as well that has been imposed on us. But through some of the network meetings, we've started having the conversations around what are we going to keep? What's the good stuff here? And I really like that. I guess, I don't know, I get this sense, looking at the stats and flattening the curve and all that stuff, that there might be a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, so starting to shift the thinking around, okay, what is next? What is the next step?
Yeah. And while we have a blank canvas, is what do we choose to put onto that? What do we choose to bring forward with us, as opposed to being directed or being, again, imposed? But it's a great opportunity for sure.
It was really pleasing. Like Minister Hunt this morning was,
Foley
this morning. So he was talking about that sort of stuff as well. So and it's good that the government have been strong on that stuff as well. So hats off to them. Yeah, it's been good.
Cool. We've almost made it to the positive reframe already. We've skipped a question. So the second question I was going to ask, though, is how can people support you and your organisation? And that was things like, do you need any advocacy? Do you need any resources? Are there volunteers, donations? Is there anything that, if people had some time or resource or capacity, that they'd be able to offer some assistance?
Look, it's actually, it's almost been overwhelming, the amount of stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Like, I pulled together just a list of different online stuff, and I stopped after a week or so because there was just so much. And I think it was about a 4 or 5 page document, but it'd be a 20-page document now, I reckon. There's just so many webinars and podcasts and just so much out there that it's just, the greatest shame is I can't remember ever being busier either, Naomi. It's just,
I know, yeah.
It's crazy. I was chatting to an exec last week at a meeting. I said I had all these visions of, reviewing the risk register and getting our policies and procedures all, nice and updated, and complete audits of all the files, and just had these visions of having all this time on my hands, but I haven't done any of it. I don't know I think there's a lot of support stuff out there. I really hope that my clinicians are taking it on. That's what would be good for me to know, that they're taking advantage of it, because I really wanted everyone to when we sent them all home, we said, use this time constructively. Try and do some upskilling stuff. Pursue an interest. I just hope that they've had the time to do that. But I don't know how anybody can give me more time, because in some ways you want to stop being bombarded, so you've got the time to. You're in so many meetings, you don't have time to do what falls out of the meeting before you're into the next meeting, sort of thing.
Yeah. That time for reflection and integration, which is a part of what these kind of conversations are about, is that opportunity to stop and reflect and think, well, what have we been doing? What has been working? What are the things that have stood out as being really important to us and our clients and our staff? And I guess to also reflect a little bit about where we're going. If reflect, or if, reflect about the future is probably not the right phrasing, might be imagining where we're going, wondering where we're going, and, what do we get to put in place to get there, rather than feeling, stuck and restricted and held within already existing structures and frameworks. It's like now they're kind of not there anymore. So where do we want to go?
The thing I've been thinking about recently, like the last couple of days, was just about, if I had to think about what would have helped a lot, certainly getting clients and client referrals was important. Keeping people working was important. To whatever capacity they had. I think there is a risk of some apathy sort of leaking in.
Just shutting down.
Yeah, you don't leave home. If you don't have a routine, you can sort of get a bit angry at the time. I've been there myself. So I wanted to make sure that we were still getting referrals. I wanted to make sure that we were still working. I don't know if on a bigger level, I was really interested to see, once we'd all stocked up with 100 rolls of toilet paper, that the lines
and rice and flour. Don't forget that we had.
But the lines at the celebrations was long as well, and some of the restrictions that they put on alcohol was things like you can buy 12 bottles of wine. It's like, wow, one slab of beer or two slabs. It was amazing. Anyway, as a non-drinker, it was amazing. But I don't know. I just feel like there was something around some sort of education stuff around healthy drinking and healthy, some message that maybe we might have missed an opportunity, or there is an opportunity there to think about, people who do drink too much. I always had this sort of idea that when I used to drink, that did I ever know if I was drinking too much? What is healthy drinking and what is unhealthy drinking, and whether or not there was something that we could have done out there.
Yeah. Oh, there's still time.
Oh yeah. Well, I think like once this is over, and it will be over before we know it, I think, and we'll look back and we go, wow, that was a crazy time.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
It'll in the context of life, it'll be a blink of an eye,
Yeah.
And you go, oh shit, did we miss something there? Did we? I saw it.
When the pandemic rolls around again, we will know better, and we'll be fine.
Complete sidetrack, but I saw a jellyfish swimming in the canals in Venice, and they say that it's just unheard of. It's just this thing that you see, and I don't know if it's true or not, but they said there's dolphins back in the canals, and they've never been clearer. But I reckon in 3 months' time or 6 months' time, they'll be back to smoggy cities and dirty waterways, and we'll be going.
Well, we get to choose that, though. We get to choose that. But I agree. It's almost if the change happens too quick, we won't be able to hold on to what we've achieved now. I know there were kangaroos in Adelaide, bounding through the CBD in Adelaide, that people had recorded. So it's that kind of thing where life is finding a way back because humans are inactive. But yeah, you just hope that enough people recognise the value in what we are seeing now. Not all of it, and not the harm, and not the distress, and not those the deaths. I mean, obviously not wanting more of that, but there's still so much that we are seeing, which is a real positive, and it's that opportunity now to choose that rather than just return to where we were in, which was not a healthy state by any means.
I don't know, just
it's good. You're pondering. I like it. We may have kind of already answered a little bit of this question, which is the last one, but what is or do you have, I suspect you do, have a positive reframe for how this crisis is creating opportunities? for improving not just individual conditions or situations, but the collective condition. I think we've touched on a little bit.
Yeah, and look, I mean, for me, it's around, it's forced change, really. It was, it was imposed on us, and we had to adapt. So, amazing how well the team did. I've got to say, awesome. And that's important. I think that's the as much as people don't like what's going on, I think for us, there's issues. Their ability to adapt was awesome. And like we said, try and capture what's really good and not lose that. Things like our day program in Geelong. Why can't we have a virtual on a Friday afternoon? Why can't we do virtual stuff? Some of the good things we've had around our forensic clients. There seem to be something that I hear around the Bay that's working pretty well with our forensic clients. Those things, I think we need to do a bit more work in understanding it and knowing that it's effective, and we're getting good outcomes. Like it's not just better because you can ring me at home and I don't have to bother coming in. But if we can actually measure some outcomes and get some good evidence there, I think that these are the things that is a real positive around what it has. I think the other positive is it a reframe? I always thought that especially in AOD, it's because I come from state-based mental health service, so that was my bread and butter for years. And you're siloed. Even in the hospital, we were the CAT team, but we didn't talk that much to the other teams. So we were siloed within a silo. I think the AOD sector is really well connected, and hats off to VADA, because you guys, you're real leaders in this stuff. So bringing everyone together a lot, and that's just awesome. So. One of the real positives is about that, how strong that connection is, that we can lean on each other really well and really easily. So
and a lot of goodwill across the sector.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Some of the meetings that you and I sit in, it's really nice just to catch up and chat to people and say good day.
Totally.
And we have another meeting in Geelong where we catch up and we don't talk about work and we don't talk about COVID, and we just talk about just have a coffee and just just a social thing. So yeah, look, out of adversity, there's been some really good things. I think that you wouldn't wish this on anybody, and certainly those that have lost their jobs and those that have been sick, and the financial impact and the effect on kids and all that stuff. You don't wish that on anybody, but some of the creativities and the new ways of thinking and the collegialship, if that's a word.
It is now. There you go. There's even been a new word created out of it.
It's good, that's the positive for me,
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure having a chat. And quite insightful, and it seems like you've been giving some consideration to these things outside of this conversation as well. But I really appreciate your time, and thank you for sharing. And I guess people know how do people contact you if they want to contact you? I'll pop something in the no.
I told you I was busy already. I don't want people contacting me.
Okay, we won't be contacting Michael. Find him in the web of Consortium. I'll get some details off you after this, perhaps, but I'll stop recording now for people who are watching. But thanks so much. Really, really appreciate your time, Michael.
No worries. Thank you, Naomi. Pleasure.